3.
Good morning everyone. My name is Vibhan Soni. Today I am going to be presenting a video upon joint family system under Kerala reforms. My first topic is historical evolution of joint family system in Kerala. The joint family system in Kerala developed unique line compared to the rest of India due to the dominance of matrilineal traditions such as Maruma Katyam and Aliyasthana, which structured family, property and inheritance around the female lineage inheritance rather than male line. Under these systems, the basic unit was the Tarwar, a large joint family consisting of multiple generations of descendants from a common female ancestor. Whoever the property was held collectively and separable shares. The management of this collective property was entrusted to the Karnavan, typically the eldest male members, who exercised almost absolutely control over the administrative and decision making, including alienation of property, often without the consent of other members. Although the system is of other members described as progressive due to the matrilineal character, in reality it did not differ the true economic independence on women as control remained centralized and individual rights were subordinate become increasingly compatible with emerging ideas of personal autonomy, contractual freedom and economic mobility, particularly in the context of colonial legal influence and post socio-legal criticism and need for reforms. By the mid-20th century, the joint family system in Kerala was widely criticized as being economically insufficient, social restrictive and legally outdated, leading to a strong demand for reforms. One of the central criticism was that absence of defined ownership discouraged productivity and investment as individuals lacked incentives to prove or manage the property effectively when they did not have exclusive rights over it. The concentration of power in Karnavan also led to frequent instances of arbitrariness, mismanagement, and even exploitations as other members has limited remedies against their decisions. Furthermore, the systems created legal complexities in transactions involving joint family property, making it difficult to integrate with modern commercial practices and financial institutions. Another important dimension of criticism was gender justice. Although the system was matrilineal, it did not translate into genuine empowerment for women as well as their rights were indirect and mediated through the family until rather than being individually enforceable. The growing influence of constitutional principles such as the equality under Article 14 and right to property as it existed before its constitutional removal further strengthened the argument that such traditional system needed to be reformed in order to align with modern legal and social standards. Now, I will be talking about the transformative role of the Kerala Joint Family System Abolition Act 1975. The Kerala Joint Family System Abolition Act 1975 was a radical legislative intervention that fundamentally dismantled the existing framework of joint family property in Kerala and replaced it with a system based upon the individual ownership and equality. The Act declared that all joint families governed by the customary laws such as Maruma Katyam and Alestana would cease to exist and their properties would devolve upon members as tenants in common, each holding a definite and ancestral share. The conversion marked the complete abolition of compulsory rights and eliminated the notion of collective ownership without the division. Importantly, the Act also abolished the position of the Karnavan, thereby ending the hierarchical concentration of power and replacing it with a decentralized system of ownership where each individual had full legal capacity over their share. The reforms not only simplified property relations but also brought clarity and certainty to the ownership, which is essential for the modern legal transactions. By doing so, it integrated Kerala's property regime into the broader framework of India's property law and facilitated its compatibility with contemporary social economic systems. Now, I will be talking about multi-dimensional impact that affects economical, social and cultural values. The abolition of the joint system had a profound and multi-layered impact on Kerala society, producing both progressive outcomes and unintended consequences. Economically, the recognition of individual ownership significantly enhanced efficiency and productivity as individuals could now freely manage, transfer, or utilize their property for investment and commercial purpose, thereby contributing to economic growth and development. It also enabled better access to credit and financial resources as clearly defined ownership made property a reliable form of collateral. Socially, the reform promoted the transitions from joint families as the nuclear families, which increased proportional freedom and privacy but simultaneously weakened traditional support system that had provided security and care, especially for vulnerable members such as elderly and dependents. From a gender perspective, the reform was the reform was in granting women equal ownership rights, although it must be noted that true empowerment depends upon broader social factors beyond legal recognition. Broader legal significance and contemporary relevance. The abolition of the joint family system in Kerala is of the immense legal importance as it represents a shift towards modernity, uniformity, and constitutionalism in personal laws, setting an example for progressive legal reforms in India. By prioritizing individual rights over collective structures, the reform aligned property law with the fundamental principles of equality, dignity, and autonomy enshrined in the Constitution. It also influenced the subsequent legislative developments, most notably the Hindu Succession Amendment Act 2005, which extended legal co-parental rights to daughters across India and further strengthened gender equality in property relations. In the contemporary context, the legal reforms continues to be relevant as it highlights the challenges of balancing traditional modernity and demonstrates the role of law as its instruments of social change. It underscores the idea that legal system must evolve in response to changing social realities, even if evolution involves the difficult process of dismantling long-standing cultural practices. Now I will talk about the impact of women's property rights and real empowerment. One of the most significant outcomes of the abolition of the joint family system in Kerala was its impact on women theoretical framework of matrimony into a more practical system of individual ownership and control. Under the earlier Marukathyam laws, a long lineage was traced through women. Actual control over property rested with the Karnavan, and the woman other lacked direct decision-making autonomy or the ability to independently alienate the property. But the 1975 reform changed that structure by granting women defined and individual shares in property, thereby converting their indirect and collective rights into direct and legal enforceable ownerships. This shift enhanced women's financial independence and legal agencies, enabling them to participate more actively in economic transactions, including sales, lease, and inheritance planning. However, it is important to note that the legal eliminate lack of awareness and economic dependency still limited the full realization of these rights for many women. Nevertheless, the Act laid a strong legal foundation for gender equality in property relations and contribute to the broader movement towards women empowerment in India. Now my end conclusion over this topic is the abolition of the joint family system in Kerala stands out when compared to development in other Indian states where joint Hindu family and co-parental system continue to exist, albeit with gradual reforms. In most parts of the India governed by the Mitaksha system, joint family property and co-parental rights were retained with reform focusing on inclusion rather than abolition, such as granting daughters equal rights through their amendments. Kerala, on the other hand, adopted a more radical approach by completely dismantling the joint family structure and replacing it with a system of individual ownership. This makes Kerala a unique case study in Indian legal history, demonstrating a bold legislative attempt to modernize personal laws in line with constitutional values. The comparison highlights two different models of reform, one that modified traditional system to ensure clarity and uniformity. Kerala's approach offers valuable lessons on the benefit and risk of sweeping legal reforms and continues to be relevant in debates surrounding uniform civil code and personal laws modernizing in India. Thank you so much.